You're listening to the Southampton Delivery Podcast, a podcast dedicated to the Southampton Football Club and all of the SFC fans.
You just got to go out and express ourselves.
Fonte with a scooping header.
You just got to get the job done. I'm here to get the job done.
Подача, Остин! Все-таки забил!
It's infield to Mane, 25 yards out. Lovely ball for Keller. Onside, 1-0. Buffon shot! Oh my word!
Unbelievable. He ran around a bit like Bambi on ice. It was very, very embarrassing to watch.
And now, your host, Matt Markstone. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Southampton Delivery Podcast, a podcast dedicated to the Southampton Football Club and all of the SFC fans. My name is Matt Markstone. I'm the host of the show, and no matter where you are, no matter how you may be listening, thank you for making the show part of your day. I hope that you enjoy it. This week's episode, as always, is brought to you in partnership with the Saints Report. For all your Southampton FC news and needs, be sure to visit the Saints Report on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. You will not be disappointed. And disappointment is something that we are trying to avoid here as Southampton fans, as supporters of the Saints, and it's not working out right now. This weekend was perhaps the hardest to take, the hardest loss to take maybe all season. And I realized that we played fairly well at Arsenal the week before. This was Mark Hughes' first home game. We played well for the majority of the game, but we had a 10-minute spell where it all kind of crumbled. And for me, I think this is finally the week that I think I have to say that we are down. I do not believe we have what it takes any longer to survive, and I hope that I am wrong. And it doesn't mean that I will not cheer on Thursday when we take on Leicester. It does not mean that I won't get behind the team for the rest of the campaign. But for so long, we've watched the team make mistakes and not fight and not show up. And this week against Chelsea, it looked like they gave it everything they had, and it still wasn't good enough. And I realized that going in to play Chelsea, you probably don't expect to come away with any points. That's a top 6 side. It's just not a game you expect to win, but to watch us work that hard, to watch the boys and to hear the crowd and to really, it just looked like we gave it everything we had and we came up short. And I think that we've dug ourselves too deep of a hole by making the other mistakes early in the season, by not showing up, by not looking committed and things like that. Obviously the manager and the board and everything else has a lot to do with the situation that we're in. But now I don't see us having, whether you want to say the character or, the quality, even though I do think our squad is good. I just don't see us being able to get the necessary number of points now with 5 games to go to keep ourselves safe. But I am sorry to start this on that note. That is not necessarily how I intended to start the podcast, but that is it's how I'm feeling right now. And I was hurt on Saturday. I was not in a good mood, and not angry, not upset, just kind of almost hopeless. Like I kind of just felt like that was it. Like that we had the season, the club's decisions have run their course. They've brought us to this point, and from now we just move forward with whatever that is. If we do find a way to stay in the Premier League, I would be overjoyed. But now it's focus on Thursday, and then we'll focus on the FA Cup semifinal, and then we'll move forward from there. And whatever happens. And a lot of people that are fans of teams that have been relegated, whether it's recently or in the past, it's not necessarily the end of the world. It is a huge chunk of money that you will miss out on if you stay down for too long. You do lack maybe the worldwide appeal to a lot of fans, a lot of new potential fans, especially with this being a World Cup year and things like that. But all that aside, the club will survive. We can only hope that we will bounce back, that the owner, shows up, does something, and we can get back on the front foot. But I don't want to talk about all of that. I apologize for that. But on this week's episode, I'm joined by Hasan Tariq. Hasan is a frequent contributor to The Ugly Inside. You can find him on Twitter at Hasan Tariq 10. He's on Instagram at Hasan.Tariq.948. And he's on Facebook at Hasan Tariq. And the links to those are in the show notes. So you can give him a follow. He posts and discusses Saints a lot on all the normal forums. He's very active. So if you're interested in having a conversation about Southampton or about anything else, let him know. He's usually up for a chat if he is about. So anyway, it was a pleasure to talk with Hasan. I've talked to him before in the past through chat, and also he's been on to do some of the shows that we've done where we have multiple callers, but this is the first time that we've ever actually gotten to sit down and have a good, hour long chat. And so, the show's about an hour long, so I won't keep you here any longer. We'll get straight to it. But I hope you enjoy it. And, I'd just like to apologize once again for the, I'm kind of beaten down at this moment. I am not feeling very confident in the team, but I'm hoping that we can go and get some points, against our former manager. And that's about it. So let's jump into my conversation with Hasan Tariq. We'll talk all things from Chelsea. We'll talk Bednarek's goal, which we thought was great. We'll talk all of the kind of implications. We'll take your listener questions, all that coming up right after this. We'd like to welcome back to the Southampton Delivery Podcast, Hasan Tariq. You can find him on Twitter at Hasan Tariq 10. He's also on Facebook and on Instagram, and the links to those are in the show notes. But Hasan, people might recognize you from, they might recognize your voice from The Ugly Inside and things like that. But welcome back to the show, and we have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, we do. Plenty to crack on with. I look forward to it.
Yeah. So before we get started, just to kind of, in case people aren't 100% familiar with you, and obviously on The Ugly Inside they can see you, and here they can't. So can you just tell us a little bit about kind of how you became a Saints fan and how long you've kind of been around the club, and then we'll get into why you or how you got involved with The Ugly Inside and all that stuff. Yeah,
it's quite a simple story, really. I was brought up and I lived very close to St Mary's Stadium growing up, and from my bedroom window I could see the ground. Whenever match day, it was busy, and so I was always fascinated to learn about the stadium, where are all these people going. And also under Rupert Lowe, I know he had a lot of downfalls, but one thing he did do is he tried to encourage the local community to get involved in the club. He used to send out loads of free tickets all the time, and once I went to my first Southampton game, I think it was in 2003, I just knew this club was for me. I was only 5, but it was just a fascination of just seeing such a big ground with so many people. And my first real season of following Saints was the 04-05 season. It was unfortunately the season we went down, but I've just been a hardcore supporter since, and I've loved the club to bits. Yeah.
So you've been through this before. So all those newish fans that have kind of never gone through this, which I'm one of them. I've never experienced a relegation battle. Maybe you have some words of encouragement and wisdom as we do this, but we'll talk about all that. And then eventually you kind of got into being quite a frequent contributor to The Ugly Inside. And I know you've worked with some other kind of things before, but how did that come about? How did you get involved with Freddie and all those guys?
I've been doing videos for like Talk Saints, which is another Southampton Football Club social media platform, in 2014-15, and then I featured a lot on the Saints Fan TV, and then when The Ugly Inside started to grow, I used to watch it, and then I spoke to Freddie about if it's possible if I could come on. He invited me on after match day interviews, and ever since then, I think after every home game, I watch the game, and then I go and do an interview with Freddie. And I think it's just brilliant to have a platform where fans can get their voice out and people get to listen. I think we're so lucky to have something like The Ugly Inside for the fans, where I can go on there and voice my opinion openly and freely on what I thought of the game. We hear all the time from pundits and experts and all these sort of professionals, but I think it's just so nice to have a platform where us fans could come on and just speak, because we don't, in the past it's not always been that fans haven't always had a voice. We'd always have to phone into radio stations like 606, which 9 times out of 10 you never get on because there's just so many people wanting to get their voices heard. But I'm just so grateful to Freddie and the team, for allowing us to have our voices. I think it's brilliant, and I hope that continues as well, whatever league we're in.
Yeah, absolutely. And the internet is kind of an equalizer. It allows all of us to kind of do this, and maybe sometimes it goes too far because you have everybody all of a sudden thinks they're you play championship manager one time and now you're talking about transfers and all this stuff or picking the team. But I think it encourages discussion, because even when somebody puts out like what I consider to be just an absolutely ridiculous lineup, pre-match, it's something to think about. And I think if you kind of interact with the right people and kind of can watch fan reactions to things and things like that, I think, Freddie was talking, the clubs are actually paying attention to that stuff now because they have to, because it's a better way for them to gauge how people are feeling about the club and around the club and things like that. And fans, they're important because players will come and go. Managers, obviously, we know will come and go. Board members, owners, all those things kind of change. But, you have, you think 32,000 people in St. Mary's, right? Something like that.
Yeah,
and
32.5 capacity. Yeah.
Those people are there week in, week out, year in, year out. And that is kind of the core of what the club is. It's not about necessarily the players or anything like that. So to be able to kind of do that, I think is great. And obviously, I mean, I do the same thing or a similar thing, and so, a lot of respect for people who did this before me to kind of go, maybe we can do it. So
I think I think football's changed in that sense. I think maybe 10 years ago, after a result, the only way you'd probably speak about the game was probably go to the pub, talk to your mates, or on Monday at school, catch up with all your friends, and you'd talk about the game. I think now with all this social media stuff, I think it's brilliant that you get to interact with fans from across the globe who share different opinions and have different stories. I think that's one of the great things about social media, that it's allowed football fans to almost come together as one family, which is great.
Yeah, and I mean, and it also makes things a lot more, a lot more immediate. Like even when I'm at work, I know the score, it's difficult for me not to know the score, because because of Twitter and things like that. And even if I shut it off, like it's hard for me to get even to where it is on TV afterwards without seeing something, a clip or an article or whatever. But I had, obviously I was at the West Ham match, and I haven't interviewed anybody since I've been back, but like I was at the West Ham match. It didn't go well. We talked to Freddie and Clive and Nick and all those guys. And then, the next week was the Arsenal match, and I was on a plane. My plane took off 5 minutes before kickoff, and it was a 10.5-hour flight. And that is the longest I had gone without knowing the score or any information about a Saints game in like 5 years, 4 or 5 years. So it's a totally different, kind of feeling, because normally it's right there in my face the whole time. So it was definitely strange. And, then I saw the result and was like, and that's the first game I didn't watch in a long time too. I didn't have time this week to watch the full match. So, I don't know. It's kind of difficult to know when you know the result and you go like, I don't know if I want to watch that one, but, I guess the performances were not bad, but
I think also from the way I see it is now, I think it's I'm fascinated to hear the voice of Saints fans who are abroad, because I understand in places like America and the Far East, you guys get access to every single Premier League game.
Yeah, absolutely.
On TV, etc. And I think within the UK, it's very different. It's either, in many cases, you either go to the game or you listen to it on the radio. Therefore, I think you guys have a different perspective, but it's also a good one because you see every game live, which is nice. And I think it's good that, fans like yourself can keep in touch with the club, just like us, and see all the action, which is great. Yeah,
it's, I don't know. Sometimes I feel bad because, I'm way over here, and you have people that are in the UK. When I was there, I know I don't have trouble watching Champions League matches or Europa League matches or Premier League matches. And, the Manchester Derby was Sunday, while I was there, I think. And I was kind of in the hotel room, like we had gotten back from where we were doing. It was like, well, let me flip on the last 30 minutes or so. And it wasn't on. I called down to the desk and was like, hey, can I watch this? And they said, no, like we don't have that channel. And I was like, well, how do I watch it? And they're like, well, you got to go next door, which is you got to go to the pub. And I was like, all right. I told my wife, I was like, hey, I got to go. I want to go watch the game. Is that okay? She's like, yeah, fine. Like, but it was just, totally, and that the pub was just packed. Everybody's in there watching the match. And then as soon as the match is over, everybody has one or two more beers and then they're gone. And then it kind of thins out. But it was different. It was definitely a different kind of feel. And
I've also got to give you credit for your commitment. Like, I've spoken to Saints fans who get up like 4:30 in the morning, or stay up until like 1 or 2 in the morning in the Far East just to watch their team. And I think that is just great commitment, especially when they've got work the next day and they've got a busy schedule. I think that's just amazing, and I think you can't question the commitment of some of the football fans in general who are on board. I think it's brilliant. I don't know how you guys can do that sometimes. Get up at ridiculous times to follow your team. I think that's amazing.
It's for me, it's not that bad, but it's I would have a much harder time doing the stay up until 1 or 2 than getting up at 4.
Okay.
I can get up at 4. I've tried getting up earlier, but then it feels like the middle of the night. Like 4 o'clock is like, that's still the morning. That's fine. But some of I look at some of the people from Australia and stuff like that. I'm like, I have no idea how you do that. And then, in places like Dubai where, Sunday is a work day. And so if they're doing Saturday night, that's Sunday morning almost. And then they got to go to work. I don't know. That's tough, for me, usually it's just early Saturday mornings and watching it kind of by myself in my office and taking just way too many notes and, eventually getting frustrated and starting to type curse words and then having to just go, I got to stop. So, but let's go ahead and kind of look at yesterday. I think throughout the season, maybe our best performances have been against the top kind of sides. And I think all of us have kind of said, well, maybe not all of us, but I've always kind of looked at it like, well, if we play well, like this will set us up for the future. This will set us up for future matches. And, we may not win. We may not take any points from them, but I was encouraged by our performance early in the season against Man City, against Arsenal, when we kind of, last minute kind of gave up the equalizer to I think Alexis and Giroud. And things like that. But then you kind of look at it doesn't seem to carry over. We had the Leicester match after one of those and it was atrocious and things like that. And now, I think we're past the point of being able to rely on good performances. And because, the last couple of weeks were maybe encouraging. We had moments of greatness, and yesterday was great for 70 minutes. And then it all kind of just went to, it all kind of went poorly. It's badly. I don't know how to say it, but let's talk about that. We'll start kind of at the beginning. Team sheet comes out, all week. Obviously Sims was red carded last week. So that's a 3-match ban for,
Stevens.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Who did I say?
You said Sims, I think.
Oh, well, I don't think Sims would do that. Stevens. Yeah. He threw Wilshere to the ground and, I don't know. I probably would have thrown Wilshere to the ground had he done that to me. That's really annoying when people do that to you. So, when people pull your shirt, it's like, I don't know. I don't like being touched. It's like, and if you ever gone anywhere, a long car ride, a long train ride with your brother and he's just like poking you just a little bit, you're like, man, it's eventually going to come out and I'm going to have to rectify this. But, anyway, Hughes talks all week and he comes out in the press conference and he kind of let on that Bednarek would get a start and he would still go with the back 3. And I thought there was no chance that was going to happen. But so were you surprised that we went with the back 5 or the back 3, and Bednarek got his first Premier League start?
I was very surprised that he'd gone to the back 5. It just didn't make sense to me. Look, I know he tried it against Arsenal, but it didn't really work for me. We conceded 3 goals against Arsenal. Welbeck missed an open goal. McCarthy made a few good saves. It could have been more. And so after I watched the Arsenal game, I thought, defensively, we can't go 5 at the back. It just simply won't work. And then obviously you mentioned the suspension of Jack Stevens, and then he put Jan Bednarek, who I actually thought in parts of that game he did really well. But I was really surprised that he'd gone for that. I would have personally gone to a 4-2-3-1 and more of an attacking team, especially when you're at home. And you need to win games. So I was very surprised, but he did hint in his press conference on Thursday that he would go with that. So it's look, he's the manager. Look, he hasn't really been given that long with his squad. Remember, we've also had the international break, so maybe 2-3 weeks to work with them. So maybe he's just going with what he thinks is the best team to get us results. But I disagree with Hughes, but and I think that was one of the reasons why we did lose yesterday, and the defensive errors. It's
he can pick the team, and I don't know. I thought that's what he was going to do. Not necessarily that was going to be the best thing. Cause like you said, I was worried about Bednarek, and the last time we saw him play in a back three, was against Wolves in the EFL Cup final, I think, or EFL Cup, not the final. Obviously it was the first hurdle.
We lost 2-0 and we never ever really looked composed or organised at the back during that game. So I'm surprised that I think as many fans would that he had gone for 5 at the back. But it's just one of those things. It's not everyone's going to agree with, but like I said, he's the manager, and we just got to go with it.
Yeah. So looking at Bednarek specifically, I mean, he didn't look any worse than any of the other guys, but kind of back there. We conceded 3 goals. We kind of melted down late, and I think he was taken off late in the game for Gabbiadini, I think. But at that point, I was kind of just like trying not to throw stuff. So I was kind of but I think I think his performance was fine. I don't think I was worried about I think Hazard was on that side, and I think about Hazard running at anybody. But I thought he was okay. I didn't see any glaring errors from him that I can remember. Anything on him or from your perspective sitting in the stands?
Well, I was actually, he scored the second goal for us, which got us 2-0 up, and I was actually behind the goal when he scored that, and I've got to give credit. It was a beautiful finish on the volley, from the back post, and I've got to give credit to James Ward-Prowse. I thought it was a great delivery, but Tape Bayu and Bednarek, you were thinking at that time, this is a dream debut, 2-0 up, he might 60 minutes on the clock, he might go on to keep a clean sheet, but it was to be, I thought he did really well for the first half, as I was saying on the other side, I can't remember Chelsea creating any clear-cut chances. I thought our back three were disciplined and they were organised during that first half. And I think Chelsea were very, very frustrated.
Looking at what they had, you have Morata up top, who hasn't been in the best form, but who is a guy who can cause people trouble. He scores a lot of goals kind of with his head, and you think that's where we're the weakest. And hopefully between the 3 of our center backs, they can kind of do enough to put them off. And sometimes my worry is that one guy will go like, well, if I don't, if he's behind me a little bit, that's somebody else will take him. Somebody else will take over. And if that communication's not there, I worry about guys like Morata getting free and getting kind of clear opportunities. And he didn't do it, but obviously, Giroud did. But we'll come on to that later. But, like you said, I was pretty impressed with the way the back 3 played for most of the first half, and parts of the second half. But, as you got into the match, or as you got into the ground and things like that, coming off of, the decent performance at Arsenal the week before, the poor performance at West Ham, and knowing that, we've been lucky, I think, up until now, that the teams ahead of us, teams above us in the table, haven't pulled away. When we don't pick up points, neither do they. And so they're still within touching distance, and what was the atmosphere like coming into the match? Did it feel more tense than normal or anything like that? Or how, it was Hughes' first match at home. So what was that like, in the ground leading up to kickoff?
Well, the sun was shining. It was warm for once, but I thought the atmosphere yesterday was brilliant. Probably one of the best it's been all season. But, before the game, everyone was, I wouldn't say confident, but everyone was sort of hoping that we could get something from the result. And I think this has mainly come from Chelsea. Haven't been great this season. Well, in the last few games, obviously you can remember they lost to Spurs at home 2-1, and then they drew to West Ham. So Saints fans sort of felt they were there for the taking. So I wouldn't say everyone was confident, but everyone was like, yeah, bring them on. They're not as good as they used to be. So there was certainly a sense of optimism going into the game yesterday, and that just grew throughout the game.
Yeah, and it sounded on TV that St. Mary's sounded great throughout the first half, and as we went into halftime, and then even in early parts of the second half, and then eventually it didn't go so well. But as the match kicks off, it took about 5 minutes for us to kind of really get control of the ball. And Bertrand and Tadic looked like they were something that had been said to Bertrand and Cedric, I think, because both of them got forward a lot more. And whether it's the ability or the freedom of playing kind of in a back 5, or whether it was specific encouragement from Hughes, the runs that Bertrand made yesterday were great, I thought, and obviously we saw it for a goal. At some point, but we were getting crosses in the box. There wasn't really anybody in there. But were we? I mean, I think we were attacking more early on in the match, and really, it looked like we were in a kind of a fair fight with Chelsea rather than us playing a big team. Does that make sense?
Yeah. To be honest, based on that first half, you probably wouldn't be able to tell apart which team was in the top 6 and which team was in the bottom 3. It looked very, very even. In fact, I think we actually had the clear-cut chances and looked even more threatening than they did. So, yeah, I tend to agree with you in that sense. Yeah.
Like, I don't know. There were a couple moments where even when Chelsea had the ball, we were pressing them, and it was kind of like 5-4-1. You know, Long's running around pressing everybody. Tadic would join him to press. But you could see the organization across the midfield line and the organization between that space between kind of the defenders and the midfielders was staying kind of we were staying compact. There wasn't a lot of room for Chelsea to work, and you know, Hazard doesn't need a lot of room to work. Willian doesn't need a lot of room to work, and eventually Pedro the same thing. But like that, we were so well organized there that we would force them back, and then just by forcing them back, you could hear the fans at St. Mary's that they appreciated that. They appreciated the effort and the organization, because I think everybody knew what the plan was. You know, there was no kind of secret from the team sheet what we were going to do, and it was just like, can we come out and do that? Because if we just come out and sit back, nobody likes that. But if you come out and you can press and you can force the other team into mistakes, which Courtois eventually plays kind of he got a back pass from a defender and he just gave it right back to him, and it put him in trouble. You know, there were a couple instances like that where we were forcing them to make mistakes, which I thought was great. There were a couple of moments early on, like about 18 minutes in. I thought we gave away some free kicks that, you know, Romeu gave a foul, and I thought that's where we're going to get beat. If Willian can put a ball in, you know, and Morata can get on the end of it, or you know, it falls to somebody else, like that for me was worrying. I thought we needed to kind of avoid that. But we didn't really get hurt with that in the first half. So, were there any kind of moments before we actually scored for you that stood out as being kind of significant, or is it just, you know, you want to talk about the first goal now? I don't know. How do you want to?
Yeah. Well, I thought from minute one, you know, like you said, we didn't give Chelsea any room to work with. From them, it was really sideways, backwards. Whenever they came deep in our half, we used to press on. Højbjerg did that absolutely outstandingly alongside Romeo, and especially Shea Long, who was, you know, caused their defence, you know, put them under pressure, you know, throughout large parts of the first half. And, you know, that was really, really encouraging. And you always felt, because Chelsea's pushed their main centre-backs were literally on the halfway line, you felt that if we could get the ball, that we could just, you know, play a long ball to Long, and, you know, we could hit them on the break. And the first goal was brilliant work from Ryan Bertrand when he out-muscled Azpilicueta, put a lovely ball in, and I think it was a decent, clever finish by Dusan Tadic, and I think that was nothing short of what we deserved in that first half. Yeah,
so that goal, for me, you know, I think we played that extremely well. I think the ball comes from Hoot to Højbjerg, and Højbjerg plays that ball through for Bertrand, and you can see, like what we were talking earlier, maybe it was before we were recording, but the commitment from the players. You can see the commitment from Bertrand that, like, I'm not, because he had the opportunity to just get there and hit it first time, and there would have been, you know, he would have lashed it across the air. There'd been nobody there. You know, maybe Long's in the box at that point, but I don't even think so. And instead, he makes a decision like he's gotten by Azpilicueta, and he knows I'm going to get in there, and he chooses to go into the box, which forces Azpilicueta to back off just a little bit, and then he's able to kind of pull it back. And I thought, like you said, Tadic finished it very, very nicely. But that I think from our perspective, that getting that ball from Højbjerg deserves credit too. It used to be, I don't know if you know this, in the MLS, they had like secondary assists where, like, it was this is one of those reasons why we're not allowed to have nice things, is like, you know, you start introducing things like secondary assists to people who like actually know football, and they're like, you can't do this. This is not a thing. But Højbjerg would have been, I think, given credit for that because of that ball that he played through. But, you know, he plays that ball through, and it leads to Bertrand being able to do that, and then eventually to the goal. And I thought that was like, you know, I thought that's what we're used to seeing from a couple of years ago, you know?
Yeah.
And we haven't seen that. We haven't seen enough of that. And I thought it was, I mean, at that point I was yelling, you know, house. I think it was maybe 4:50, maybe 5 o'clock in the morning at this point, and I'm doing this, and so everybody here has to be awake at that point because that's what I'm doing. And I was told to be quiet by my son, who's almost 13, and not really happy with me waking him up before 5, yelling at the TV. But at that point, we're up 1-0, and then I think Chelsea kind of went like, maybe we need to step it up a little bit, and I think we were put under a little bit more pressure. And for me, I was just thinking like, if we can just get to halftime without conceding, that'll be good. And then I think from there, it seems like the second half of matches is usually a little bit better. It seems like Hughes can really arrange those things. And so, we did eventually. And I think the rest of the first half kind of went by without, much of an incident. There were a couple of yellow cards and things like that.
I think I'd like to mention the horrific tackle Alonso did a Shay Long. I think we have to speak about that. I think Mike Dean was in a brilliant position to see that. It should have been a straight red card. And who knows, it would have gone on to change the game as well. I think that's a big talking point. It hasn't been mentioned much in the youth media across the UK, but I feel if it was the other way around, Chelsea fans would have been all over it on social media and they would be making a massive fuss over it. I think it was a definite red card. And, there has to be action from the FA for me.
Yeah, so that tackle, it's from Marcus Alonso, correct?
Yes.
And he jumps over somebody who's on the ground, and then he puts his studs right in the back of Shane Long's calf, kind of right above. I mean, I'm sure everybody has seen it, right above or just below the knee. And, it happened in real time. It looked like a bad challenge, but then when you slow it down, it's atrocious. And I, at that point, tweeted something that I had to delete because it was not nice, and I shouldn't be doing stuff like that. But he does that from time to time, and I think he gets away with it quite a bit. And I never want to play the big team bias card or Mike Dean is I don't want the referee to be the center of attention, but Mike Dean makes it difficult not to talk about him because he's one of those referees which I really just really dislike, and I don't dislike many referees, but he's one of them which is at the top of my list. For me, I've seen the pictures and the footage of the view he had, and it is beyond me how he did not see that. It just doesn't, I'm still trying to comprehend how he didn't see it. It's just fair play. Look, if he doesn't see it, then I'll hold my hands up and I'll say, look, fair play. Mike Dean did see it, but it really buggers me that he saw that and he took zero action, and that's what hurts. Yeah, and it's, there are a number of things kind of wrong with it, and I think he lost control of the match at that point.
100%.
What I did appreciate, and maybe we need to talk about this, is Alonso makes that challenge. There is no foul. Then Alonso brings the ball away from that, and then Ward-Prowse just levels him. And I'm just like, thank you, because we needed, and obviously you take the yellow, you give them a free kick in a dangerous area. And maybe it's a little bit of the Stevens thing where that's a little bit of frustration and everything else. But like you can't let somebody do that to your teammate and then, not at least send a bit of a message and then once the play stops, then you can see the Saints players kind of go to Mike Dean and you are like, look at back there and all this. And Hughes was livid on the sideline, which I thought was
rightly so.
Yeah. And so for me, that's not bad. That's kind of what you need to do. And I'm just glad we have somebody in the team. I didn't expect it to be James Ward-Prowse, but I'm glad we have somebody on the team that will do that and just put a stop to it, which I thought was good.
Would it have changed the game? We'll never know. But I do remember early on in the season where we were 2-0 up and West Ham and Archers got sent off at home, and they still managed to come back to 2-2. So look, I think it would have made a massive difference. Playing under Hughes, I think the extra legs would have certainly given us something. But it's like you said, it's good that we had someone like James Ward-Prowse who let Alonso know you can't do this, and didn't let him get away with it. And I hope the FA give him a 3-match ban at least. I think that's what he deserves.
I don't know if they will, because they may say that Dean saw it. It wasn't a situation where it happened off the ball, but I don't know. We'll have to see if it comes out and what the outcry will be if nothing happens. But for me initially into the second half, if we kind of jump forward to the second goal, Alonso's the one who loses Bednarek at the back post. He kind of goes to sleep and kind of lets Bednarek run off him. So at that point, I'm like, well, maybe it's not so bad. But then if you look at Alonso's involvement, somebody summed it up nicely. I'm trying to find the tweet here because somebody just kind of nailed it in terms of, his contributions to the game. So this is Carl Matchett. He's a freelance European football journalist. He's got a blue check mark. So we'll just go through kind of what he says. He says, so in summary, Alonso assists Chelsea's first goal. Also frees Willian, who assists Chelsea's second goal, wins the free kick that leads to Chelsea's third goal. And this is all after Alonso should have been sent off in the first half. So, obviously when I'm thinking that, maybe it's not so bad because it's, he's let Bednarek loose at the back post for our second goal. But obviously he is crucial to kind of how they play. And
totally, definitely.
And so, it does have an impact on the game. And that for me is something that is almost inexcusable from Dean, because he has allowed, his inability to properly kind of manage a match and show the red card. I mean, we saw Dean was down in the championship just a few weeks ago because he had poor performances, and so for him to mismanage a game like that and allow somebody to stay on the pitch, especially when we're in such a bad spot in terms of needing points and things like this, this is somewhat on him, but I think, I don't know, my perspective is it's more kind of on us. But anyway,
I'd like to add something to that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Possible. Like you said, coming out of the first half, I remember about 3-4 minutes before we scored, Shay Long on the break, he's running in and he turned and he's literally threw on in goal. Alonso clips him, gets none of the ball again. I think it falls to Tadic to shoot and Courtois makes a good save. And I think on the second scenario, Alonso didn't even get a booking then. And for me, that should have been a red card as well.
Yeah. And it was...
you remember that case?
I think I do. And I think Long fell down kind of in the area. Is that correct?
Well, it might have been in the area, it might have just been dressed up, but from where I was sat, he looked like he was the last guy. And if you make that challenge and get it wrong, surely it's a sending off, isn't it? Again.
Yeah, absolutely. And
but I think Mike Dean had that chance then to rectify his previous decision, which he got totally wrong, and send him off. I think if Alonso had been sent off for that second tackle, then I think there would be no arguments about that red card. But yet again, he gives nothing. And then, like you said, Alonso was directly involved within all three goals, which is just typical of our luck, though, isn't it? Right.
And and that's what we'll kind of come on to. Positive parts of that first half, I thought the pressing, the pressure we put them under was great. I thought Long and Tadic were both working very hard, and I know Tadic gets a lot of grief from people. I tend to like him. And so I'm open to criticizing him and being criticized for supporting him and stuff like that. But I think if we're going to play that kind of formation, that 5-4-1, like he is probably the best midfielder we have to assist in the pressing and things like that. Assist the striker other than maybe Redmond. And I thought the ability of the players and the willingness of our players to get kind of stuck into tackles and things like that was great. But I thought once again that we were kind of giving away a lot of dangerous free kicks. We had too many cards and I didn't think Chelsea played particularly well in the first half, as well as I thought we were doing. Chelsea weren't doing well, and yet we were still only up 1-0, which was slightly worrying because at this point we've seen we can give away leads. You talked about West Ham earlier, even when we were up 1-0, or 2-0 and up a man.
Yeah. Watford away.
Yeah.
Palace at home, we were leading 1-0 at home. There's been numerous occasions where it's been that case. Yeah.
And so at halftime, what's the feeling? What's everybody saying in the stands at that point? Are people still feeling confident? Are people worried? How are you feeling at halftime?
Everyone was really, really encouraged from the first half performance. The way we pressed, I guess, in a way that was very similar to how we used to press under the Pochettino days, which was really nice to see. But for sure, everyone was wary of the threats Chelsea had off the bench. Everyone talks about how Giroud was brilliant when he came off the bench. I agree, but I think Pedro also. He's another class player with plenty of experience. I think everyone was aware of, the players that Chelsea had on the bench who could come on and cause us problems. But we felt at half-time that we had frustrated Chelsea in large parts of that game. And I certainly felt that if we could keep it up in the second, then we could have certainly got something out of the game.
Yeah, so coming out of the second half, I had just some notes here, and I was just thinking, our players are under a lot of pressure. This is obviously Hughes' first match at home, but we're in front of a home crowd. We've scored. We have the lead. We're facing the reigning champs who maybe aren't having, obviously, the best of seasons. The match is more physical, I think, than normal for us. And we so desperately needed 3 points, and this you wonder, do we have the players in there who have been in this situation who can kind of take all that, compartmentalize it, and just realize I just need to go out and do my job, and not be willing to, like we did under Pellegrino, just sit back so deep that you allow guys like Hazard and Willian and Pedro eventually to kind of find space and eventually break you down, because they will. And you also just worry that, you don't go out and try to do something so ridiculous with all those cards out there that somebody gets sent off, and then you're in a world of hurt. And, I don't know. We soaked up pressure well early on. We had the counterattack and it kind of led to a corner. And I thought that, I think this is one where Long maybe took it off his shoulder, maybe, or kind of somewhere off his chest, and kind of got it down. And it produced a good save from Courtois, which I thought was good. And, I don't know. I was slightly worried because we've seen this before, but at the same time, I'm feeling strangely confident. And I don't know if that's just being a football fan and going like, yeah, maybe we'll do it this week. And that's kind of, I think that's what it's about. You get excited and you get, to watch your team and things like that. But, I don't know. I was feeling confident, and I can't imagine why, because every week if we lose, it's like, man, like, just don't let yourself get that worked up next time, Yeah. But anyway, to the second goal, which I thought was great. The foul leading to it may be a bit soft, but hey, we won it. And at the very least, we deserved a foul that way. And like you said earlier, Ward-Prowse kind of whips that ball into the back post. In the finish from Bednarek, I mean, it looked like a training ground video. This is what we've all been complaining about seeing so much, because it seems like we just see strikers finish. And then here it is, Bednarek at the back post, kind of, doing it. And at that point, my feeling was like, this is it. That's 2-0 down. That should be it. There's 30 minutes left. And I think all of us, at least according to Twitter, thought, 30 minutes left, 3 points, like we're well on our way, What was that like for you, kind of being there? You said you were behind that goal, behind the goal for that one.
When Bednarek scored the second, probably the loudest roar from the stadium I've heard all season. Everyone was happy, jumping, screaming, shouting, singing. It was a feeling which I've missed at St Mary's, and I think on the previous few occasions we hadn't actually scored in our previous last two home games. Bear with me, I think it was against Stoke and Liverpool, we hadn't even scored. So to score two in one game, everyone was like, yeah, I'm really happy. We certainly didn't expect to score two against Chelsea. So it was really positive vibes. Everyone was singing, clapping, just generally happy. Not just that we were 2-0 up, but also for Bednarek, that, he got his first goal in his debut. This is something, he'll treasure for the rest of his career. And everyone at that moment felt that we were certainly on our way picking up something in this game. But I need to give Antonio Conte credit. Within moments after that, he made changes and they worked. And I think that's why he is one of the top managers. He wasn't scared to, make those changes early.
Yeah, and like we had talked about earlier, Morata hadn't really done anything, and Giroud comes on for him immediately after the goal. Zappacosta goes off for Pedro, and so they switch formations. They go to a back four, and Pedro comes in, and now you have Pedro, Hazard, and Willian up there. You have Giroud, and I think that changed the game a little bit. I think that put us under a bit more pressure. I think maybe then you saw us kind of do what we've done in the past, which is start to sit a little bit deeper, because now it was like, well, now we have a 2-goal lead, so we don't necessarily have to go and hit them on the counter. We can just kind of soak up pressure. And I don't know, but still, they never really had a foothold in the game. They weren't really directly threatening the goal. Because I think that goal that they scored initially just kind of came out of nothing.
Yeah, it was certainly, Chelsea never in the build up to it looked like scoring, and it's a brilliant cross in for Giroud. But how he's literally the only target, and to think we were at that stage, we were still playing 5 at the back, 3 centre backs, and you think out of the 3 centre backs, none of them picked him up. And I think it was actually in between Giroud, give credit to him, he managed to get in between Hoyder and Yoshida, and it's a brilliant header with great accuracy, and he gives the keeper no chance. So from my point of view is, it disappoints me that, and I've used this phrase quite a lot this season, Scooby-Doo defending. And I think that's it again. They only had one man to pick up. They knew Giroud had a long record against scoring against Saints, and yet they failed to pick him up. And you think in the build up to this game, do you do your homework on your opposition? It just makes you think, because every Saints fan walking into the game knew that, Giroud could be one of the biggest threats on the bench. But, it looked like the players didn't have a clue on how to play him.
Yeah, and this is not the first time he's hurt us. He came off the bench for Arsenal and hurt us, at the Emirates, I think. It was at St. Mary's. Early on in the season. That was another
1-1 draw.
Yeah.
Again, should have won.
Yeah. And we had that game, and then it was Alexis to Giroud. And, I remember that because I was at my Arsenal friend's house. At that point, at 2-1, I think, there were some doubts starting to creep back into my mind. You could just kind of see the defense and everybody kind of just shrink and kind of almost collapse. And now you can see it was coming. And
yeah, it was. And I felt the crowd as well. I think as soon as Giroud scored that, everyone was looking at each other and we thought, oh no, this is going to give them something to, really build on. And like you said, we knew it was coming. It was just delaying the inevitable, really.
Yeah. And then it all kind of goes wrong in less than 20 minutes. And I don't know, man. Like by the 75th minute, it was 2-2.
Yeah.
The momentum was gone. The kind of resilience was gone. And I at that point, honestly, I didn't think we were going to hang on for a point. I thought, it was that third goal for them was probably coming. I didn't take any notes, after that second goal went in. I just kind of just watched and hoped that it wasn't going to happen. Yeah. And then, then it's 3-2 and I don't know, man, like it was, people were, when I was there for the West Ham match, people were kind of apologizing for, the performance and the team and all that stuff. And there was a guy there from the States yesterday. I think he had his whole family there and he was really excited 2-0 up and doing all this. And then all of a sudden it just kind of collapses. And that's a completely different kind of like kick in the gut because it looked for 60 or 70 minutes that that was everything we had, and then it just still wasn't enough. And that to me, it's maybe the first time that I thought that the squad, like, I don't want to say it's the first time I've ever thought the squad wasn't good enough, but I tend to think that our squad is decent and that a lot of managers and a lot of fan bases would take our squad in a straight swap for theirs. A lot of our players would make other squads. And yesterday it just looked like, the deficiencies that we have at center back, the lack of leadership, the lack of kind of maturity, those things were evident yesterday because we couldn't pick ourselves up once things started to go against us. And that to me is part of the reason that I don't think we can stay up. I think that type of collapse is what will eventually see us cut loose and relegated, which I hate to say out loud.
Yeah, well, I'd like to go back to your point regarding the second goal, and it was on the other side of the ground for me, but it still baffles me how Hazard managed to have so much room in the box. Like, in the first half, in comparison, I can't remember many occasions where Hazard was even in the box, let alone have that much room. And I feel that when the first goal went in, we lost our complete discipline and sort of motivation as well. And I think how Hazard had that much room in the box, nobody went out. I think it was actually Romero's job to should have gone out and stopped tried to stop him, but then you can't take anything away from the finish 2-2, and then at that stage regarding I was at the ground and you hear a massive roar from the Chelsea fans, and at that stage they're singing 2-0 and you effed it up.
Yeah.
And at that stage, I was looking at the players and none of them were looking at each other. All their heads were down. And then just thought, like you said, all the momentum was for Chelsea. And then minutes later, is it? Chelsea have a free kick with Willian, who, if I believe to be correct, he played a clever little pass out wide. It's a lovely cross out. It's cleared, and then it's Giroud who just taps it in. And 3-2 down, I think that was the feeling that every Saints fan dreaded. And, I remember against Liverpool a few seasons ago coming back from 2-0 down to win 3-2. And it was so cool that it happened to us yesterday.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And for me, a lot of people on social media saying that goal was the final nail in the coffin. But a lot of people also said that's not the reason that game yesterday isn't the reason why we're going down. We failed to beat any of the promoted teams last season.
Right.
That come up. You haven't beaten any of them. And, the stats don't lie. It's 1 win in 20, which I don't care how good your squad is or how good your manager or your supporters or how much money your club is. If you have a statistic like that, then you deserve to go down. 1 win in 20 is simply not good enough at this level.
Right. And talking about that, you're right. Like we beginning of the season, you don't expect to take points. Maybe you get a draw at home against Chelsea. If you get a draw at home, maybe you knock off one of the top 6. I think you're okay with that,
Yeah.
But just in the context now of the season, and we only have so many matches left, being up 2-0 at home, you think the players would have recognized that this is the time where we absolutely have to get points. And so, yeah, I mean, we haven't been good enough all season, and that's an understatement. Nobody has to say that over and over again. But just kind of looking back at the second and third goals here, both times you have balls worked out wide left, so attacking Cedric, balls coming into the box, and both times you just have one of their attackers, whether it's Giroud or Hazard, just kind of peeling off, just backing off that back line, finding the space that wasn't there in the first half between midfield and defense, and being able to put it away. And the second goal, or the second and third goal, they're not exactly the same, but the result and kind of the position from which the strikes are taken are fairly similar. And that's something that we have to be able to adjust and have it pause just kind of like a second and a half, maybe, after Giroud is just starting to point towards the away fans and celebrate. And you got, I think Yoshida's laying on the ground. Bertrand's kind of slumping. You got, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players are looking at the ground, and
heads down.
I think they recognize right there that this is over, that they're not coming back, even with 15 minutes or 13 minutes left plus stoppage time. I don't think they believe they were going to come back. And to be honest, like I was hoping we were, but I didn't really believe it either.
Yeah, I think the damage was done. I think the damage is done to the confidence and belief. And I think that the players just simply didn't believe. To be honest, I think we defended so badly in that first half that even a 3-0 lead, in my opinion, we could have even let that go. I think Chelsea, after that, in a way, they didn't really look to get on the fourth. They just sort of defended what they had, and they did that brilliantly for the last 10 to 12 minutes. They barely gave us a sniff. I think we had a one shot with Sims, who Courtois saved fairly easily, but then I remember we brought Gabbiadini on, which was just far too late, and Charlie Austin, who unfortunately it was just far too late, like you said. It's I think all the heads were down, and I think the crowd went quiet, completely quiet, and I think everything at when they got that winner at 3-2, I think that just sealed the game for us. I didn't think any Saints fan felt we could get back into this game. It was just it was a nightmare. It was from a personal opinion, it was just such a horrible feeling, and it was so cruel as well, because we played really well for 60 minutes, but like I said on the ugly side, looking back at yesterday, it was a complete failure. And it like you said, it looks like we're going to have to prepare to play championship football next season. It's looking the inevitable now, because we've put ourselves in a nasty hole where we need to win 3 of our last 4 games, which is we've won 5 all season and 1 win in 20. It's going to take a real shift now, isn't it?
Yeah, and I have tried really hard to be positive. Managerial appointments, everything else. Like I try just to hope and see and just kind of wish that whoever is in charge and whoever's on the pitch, that there must be something we're not seeing behind closed doors in training, or something, that this must be the right decision. And I think yesterday did it for me in terms of I don't know, like I can't fool myself, I guess, into thinking that we're going to stay up this year. I see people saying, we just need this many points. And it's like, man, like where are those wins going to come from? What this season and parts of last season has convinced you that we can get wins? We can get 3 wins out of our next 5 games. Because I mean, if you see something, then you can back it up, then great, I'll listen. But right now I'm looking at it and going like, this has been a great run. We've been fantastic. It's been a great couple of years. Something's gone wrong behind the scenes, and it's going to take some time to fix. And Oh man.
Yeah, it's tough, like you said. But I think, like going forward, maybe we need to sort of. A lot of teams in the past have looked at our model of bringing youth players in and doing so well in the Premier League. Maybe we need to look at what Burnley did and Newcastle did. That when they went down, they came straight back up. And ever since they have come back, they've looked, a solid Premier League team who have rarely threatened relegation. And Newcastle, if you look at, what they've done the last 2 months, they've looked like a top 6 team. They've been fantastic. And I think we need to sort of adopt their model of, look, it's not the end of the world. We have got the resources to come straight back up in the Premier League. And we can, in the near future, be competitive in this league once again.
Yeah, it depends on what the contracts look like, who's staying and who's going, and that's a who's kind of equipped in our team to play championship football. And I've said before, guys like Cedric won't be there, won't survive in that situation. But you look at a guy like Matt Targett, who's at Fulham and just enjoying himself thoroughly. And I don't know if you know, Fulham has an American center back that plays right next to Targett. So that's like Fulham is actually quite well liked here in the States.
Are they an American club owned by Shahid Khan?
I think so.
Yeah.
I'll be honest that like you start talking about owners. I know there are a lot of American clubs or a lot of American owners of clubs. I think Liverpool is involved in something like that and things like that. But like it's an Arsenal as well. But I try not to pay attention too much. I try not to get too wrapped up in it. But I do know that there are a lot of Americans who like Fulham. And I do know that their matches actually show up quite frequently on some of the outlets that we have here, where we do get to watch some championship football, but not necessarily all of it. And I know you and I have talked before about what I'm going to have to do to be able to watch the team, and I'll figure out a way. I'll just have to get maybe I'll have to get some. Instead of paying for a subscription to something, I'll just have to pay for a subscription to some sort of antivirus to make sure that I can watch these games, whatever language they come in on. But so a few questions. We have a couple from Instagram that we will get to. And this one comes from Jay, who's at FFSJAAY. He says that Southampton could somehow beat Leicester and Bournemouth. Could Hasan see a recovery, or is it still too late? So what do you say to that?
That is a very good question. At the moment, for me, I'm just looking at it one game at a time. I think that if we can somehow manage to beat Leicester, I think that should spark some confidence and belief. And Bournemouth, they seem to be a bit on the beach themselves. It looks like they have enough points to stay in the Premier League. So possibly we could beat them. And going on our last 2 performances against Arsenal and Chelsea, you believe if we could repeat that without the defensive mistakes, then we should have too much for Bournemouth. So my response to that is, if we can win our next 2 Premier League games, yes, I think then everyone will start to believe again. But then it's the fact that we've won 1 in the last 20 that I keep having to refer to that. When it looks a very, very tough ask. We haven't won back-to-back games all season, so they're both winnable games in comparison to the previous 2 we've had, but it's going to be tough. But if we do win them, then I'll say we've got hope. But I was mentioning to a lot of my friends yesterday that we also need teams like, I'm going to give an example, Brighton to possibly slip up. Now, I've looked at Brighton's fixture list, and they've got to play Spurs, Manchester United, Burnley, Manchester City, and Liverpool. And if I'm not correct in saying this, that those 5 games are all against teams in the top 7. So for what I would probably go on to say is that if Brighton, for example, lose all of those games, then we can somehow match that 35 points. That might just be enough to stay up. Just might. But
then you're talking, 2 wins and a draw in our last 5,
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, if you look at our schedule, and I don't mean to, this is so not me to be this way, but you look at our schedule, like you said, we have Leicester and Bournemouth. We have Everton, who, who knows what's going to happen with them. They vary from week to week, but then we have a game against Swansea and then Manchester City. Remember last year at the end of the season, we failed to beat Stoke at home. Last game of the season, which was a bad run for a number of things, but I don't know, man. Like, you kind of think Bournemouth will be up for it. Leicester, Claude Puel destroyed us last time we met them, and he's going to look to do it again.
100%. They've still got their ambition of reaching 7th place, which would mean, well, it looks like it would mean European qualification, unless Southampton win the FA Cup.
Right.
So you'd think that they still have something to play for. Everton and Leicester, who are in and around those top 10 positions, between that about 10th and 7th, who are sort of luring around then. So yeah, you'd think that they would still have something to play for.
Yeah.
And like you said, Leicester absolutely demolished us in the first 40 minutes in that home tie at St Mary's, where we found ourselves 3-9. Could have been more. So it's like you said, it just looks like a really tough ask. And I've said it for weeks that I think we're down because I just don't think we're going to get the results. But I guess football's a funny game. I've seen over my years in the Premier League watching it, I've seen great escapes from teams like Wigan, who have won, for example, like 4 of their last 5 games and stayed up. And in their previous game, they'd only won like 2 or 3. I remember that you might remember yourself a few seasons ago, the great escape by Leicester, where they were 8 or 9 points away from safety, and somehow they managed to go on a Champions League form. And I think that's what we need. I think we need to hit a top 6, top 4 form between now and the season. I think that's our only hope of staying up. And I think the only time we've really hit that form was at the end of the 15-16 season on the Ronald Koeman, where we were chasing a European football.
Right.
And I think we have to simply hit similar form to that if we're going to have any chance of staying up.
I think Sunderland also did it a couple times, right, before it finally caught up with them. But and Southampton has a history of doing it, with Letizia in the team and things like that, where they were fighting against relegation. And I've talked to a lot of fans who have been around a while, and it seems like I would say that people closer to mine and your age are probably less optimistic than some of the fans who have been around a while, because they've seen it before. But I think even they're starting to kind of go like, I'm just looking like we're no longer a 1 win away from being out of the relegation zone.
It's now 2, isn't it?
Yeah. And that's so dangerous, and we don't have the team above us, Swansea. We don't have a game in hand against them, because that's who our game in hand is against. West Ham have a game in hand against us. Newcastle, which are all the way in 10th, we're never catching them. But you look around and, even though Crystal Palace is on 34 points and we're only on 28, like that's really the team that people are going to be looking to reel in, because they've already played, a game more than us, but I don't know. We relied so long on people kind of making mistakes and not pulling away that we maybe it's run out. I don't know. And our goal difference isn't even the best out of that group like it was for a long time.
I was speaking to my uncle who supported the club since the 70s, and he says he remembers the season where we managed to stay up on goal difference. But he goes, it was all Matt Letizia. Everyone knew that he would be the one, and he simply states to me that he just can't find that one player that will get everyone together and rally the troops. And he'll be the key guy that will try and keep us up. I think we're lacking leaders in the squad, and I think that's in a way that's why we're not gonna stay up. I just think it's too many points. 7 points and like you said, it's 2 wins now until we get out of that bottom 3, which is, and if Swansea win their game in hand over us, they're 9 points above us.
Right.
So I think the hole which we've dug ourselves into is just too big, and I think that is really, I think for me, that's down to the board. They should have sacked Pellegrino before. For me, should have gone at Christmas. We had so many opportunities to sack him, and I think the arrogance of the board that they just didn't sack him, and I think that's why we're going to go down. I remember 2 seasons ago, same happened to Newcastle. They sacked Steve McLaren way too late, although performance has improved and they started to get results. It was too much of an ask, and they went down. And I honestly feel we've made a similar mistake.
Yeah. All right. So a couple questions here from Instagram, and just a reminder to everybody, you can send in questions on Instagram or Twitter. Look for the call for questions and use the hashtag SFCDel and we'll answer them here for the most part. But Courtney Lewis White SFC says, should we keep Mark Hughes permanently? Somebody TSUJ_ says Hughes in the championship. So same kind of question. If we go down, is Hughes the guy to kind of lead us forward, or would you replace him? And that's what we'll do with that question.
I'd keep Mark Hughes personally. I think from what I've seen of his 4 games in charge, I think 3 after 4 against Wigan, and then the last 2 we've seen a significant boost in effort from all the players. So based on that, I know we've lost 3 of the league games under him. I think based on that, I think if you give Mark, a transfer market where, he can bring the sort of players he wants, to fit his style of play, then I would certainly stick with Mark, but it's up to him as well. I understand he only has a short contract with the club. He may, look to leave and, wait around and, because everyone knows there'll be so many there's at least 10 sackings in the Premier League next season, and maybe try and get another job in the Premier next season. But I would love to keep Marcus based on what I've seen so far. So I would keep him, but at the end of the day, it's down to the board. I think they'll be making the final decisions on that. If we go down, he has zero blame. I think that entirely all the blame is down to Pellegrino and the board for not sacking him soon enough and just being very, very naive. So I think Mark has I can't fault Mark please at all.
No,
and
no.
I would certainly keep him, in my opinion. But also, if there are good managers who do come across who, make themselves available, then, I may reconsider my decision. But at the moment, I think Mark's probably the best guy to persist with.
Okay. S_Evans_13 says, if we do go down, who do you think that will sell? And who do you think we should bring in and start with? So maybe just give me 2 or 3 players you think will go. I think Cedric will go. I also think Bertrand will go. And possibly a guy like Tadic, because I think Bertrand, I don't think you start for England or get close to starting for England if you're playing championship football, and so I think he goes. I just don't think Cedric's cut out for that league. And I think Tadic, I think he will fit nicely somewhere in Italy, somewhere in maybe outside the Premier League, but I think he will be highly coveted by a lot of teams. And so I just can't see guys like that kind of staying around. And I don't know how you feel about that.
I think a lot of the international players who represent their countries most likely will leave. I've got a funny feeling that Fraser Forster will leave. I simply think he won't settle for a number 2 position in the Championship. I think he'll look elsewhere. I'm fine with McCarthy. I think he'll stick with us in the Championship. I'm fine with him. I think Cedric will go. I think if we start with the defence, Cedric will go. Bertrand will go. I think Jeremy Pi's contract it comes to an end at the end of the season, so I think he'll go on a free anyway. Wesley Hoydet, well, you think a £17 million, ex-Lazio, ex-Dutch international player would leave, but for me, he hasn't been good enough, and I fail to, look at any clubs which would actually take him. So for me, if the opportunity came along, I would actually sell him. I can see Jack Stevens and Yoshida both staying. I can see Soufiane Boufal leaving, Lemina leaving, possibly also Romeo. I know a few clubs in the Premier League who admire Romeo, so I think he could possibly stay. I think Højbjerg, for me, he's probably someone I look to make captain. I think his attitude, his motivation, his discipline is second to none. I think he's just a superb player and a guy. And he's the sort of, I think he certainly is captain material. He's probably one of the players which I would go to arm's length to try and keep in the squad. I think personally, if we go on to players like Stephen Davis, now my opinion on Stephen Davis is I think he's past his best. So it's a tough one. If offers came, I'd probably let him go. I think Prowse most possibly might leave as well. I think it's vital that we keep Charlie Austin. I think Shay Long will also stay. But I think maybe Manola Gabbiadini may be looking for a move back to Italy.
Right.
I think maybe Josh Sims will stay, and I think we all know that Ryan Bertrand I think he will certainly leave. But then, like you said, that opens the chance for Matt Targett to come back. And I read an interesting stat in the week that ever since Matt Targett's joined Fulham, they haven't lost a game in 21 games. So 21 games unbeaten with Matt Targett in the squad. Yeah. So I think he'll be a great addition to the squad in the Championship. But also there seems to be whether we keep Harrison Reed, who's currently on loan at Norwich. Do we sell him, keep him? And Jordy Classy, who's on loan at Club de Brugge. So I think it's a tough one really. Yeah. I can easily see 10 plus players going, and But also you need a big squad in the Championship because it is 46 games, so it's and a lot of the time it is Saturday, Tuesday, or Saturday, Wednesday. So
well, maybe we could just pretend like we're not playing the Championship, we're just playing the Champions League. Games all the time. But like I said, I think some of those players will go regardless of whether we stay in the Premier League or not. But I think who we replace them with will depend.
Yeah.
You know, if we go down, there's a good chance we try to bring Harrison Reed back. We try to bring Matt Targett back. If we stay in the Premier League, like you said, I think Gabby Dini's going to go, and obviously we're not going to replace him with some sort of championship striker. We're going to have to find.
Also, Sam Gallagher as well.
Yeah.
He's also a one which I think he's been at Blackburn and Birmingham for the last 2 seasons. So he's spent the last 2-3 seasons in the Championship, and one could argue that maybe we would need his Championship experience. But I feel and it's always a big if for Charlie Austin, if we keep him fit,
sure,
then he could score plenty of goals in the Championship for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess last thing, the Saints FC page asks, is it too late? And I think we've answered that already. I think
it looks like it's too late. And yeah, for me, and as well as I'll say 80% of Saints fans, it looks like it's too late. But then again, until it's mathematically impossible, I know a lot of Saints fans who will still believe we can do it. And I think that's more hope.
Right.
We move on to Thursday, which is supposedly the biggest game left of our biggest game of our season. And me and you both know, Mark, that only a win will do. Only a win will keep that hope.
Right.
Anything else will just I think that's it really. I don't think there's really much more to say.
Right. I think we've covered it. And yeah. I mean, Hasan, this is not the best of circumstances under which to talk, but I thank you for your time and thank you for being willing to join me and discuss all of this. And I hope we did a good job. I feel like I kind of been a little bit flustered just looking at it all and being, just looking at it and feeling kind of hopeless. And I don't want to feel that way. And so,
yeah,
by the time Thursday rolls around, I will, be wearing my jersey at work and I'll be ready to go and watch the team. And I just hope that, I hope we can do it.
Yeah, hopefully. And I think that's one thing, hope. I'll be praying between now and the end of the season. Just keep praying that, we can stay up. Bigger miracles have happened in the Premier League. So where there is hope, I will always believe. But deep down, my heart says we're done.
Yeah.
And I think yesterday just confirmed it. I think had we won yesterday, I would have come on here, Mark, and I would have been talking about, I think, how we can stay up.
Right.
And but for me, I think the belief's gone within the squad.
All right.
When you throw away a 2-0 lead at home and concede 3 goals in 8 minutes, I think that just tells you everything.
Yeah, it's the manner of it. I think just takes any hope you had or any confidence you had is gone. So, all right, Hasan. Well, thank you so much, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you.
That does it for episode 67 of the Southampton Delivery Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope that you enjoyed it. Special thanks goes out to Hasan Tariq, who joined me for this week's episode. You can find him on Twitter at Hasan Tariq10. You can get in touch with him on Instagram at Hasan.Tariq.948. And he's on Facebook at Hasan Tariq. All the links to those are in the show notes. Thank you to Hasan for giving me his time. Special thanks to all of you once again for listening. Not the best, most uplifting episode, but hopefully the team can surprise us and show us something on Thursday. And then going into Sunday, I hope that we just have a good day out for all of you who are able to attend. So now for the normal stuff, thank you to the We Are Southampton page on Instagram. They do the artwork for the show. They do the logo for the show. Matt's been a huge help throughout this entire process. Could not do it without him. Special thanks to the Saints Report for partnering with me. Remember, for all your Southampton FC news and needs, be sure to visit the Saints Report on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. You will not be disappointed. You can get in touch with this show on social media at SFCDELL_IVERY. That's on Twitter and Instagram. We're also on Facebook at facebook.com/SFCDelivery. No underscore in the Facebook address. If you're looking to get this podcast on your phone or on your device or however you listen, you can do that on iTunes, Stitcher, Acast, Google Play, TuneIn Radio, YouTube, Radio Public, really wherever you listen. Just search Delivery with 2 L's or look up Southampton, or go down in the show notes now and click on the link that you want. You will go straight there. You will be subscribed and you won't have to worry about trying to find each episode. All the music for this week's episode comes courtesy of the Free Music Archive at freemusicarchive.org. The intro song is Epic Song by Boxcat Games, and the end of show credits that you're listening to now is Aim is True by Poddington Bear. Next week, we will be back after the FA Cup semifinal, hopefully with some good news. And as we go to Leicester, hopefully we take some points from there as well. So until then, remember that together, we march on.